I found the book in our bedroom drawer. Witches Who Embrace Freely, marked with notes in my wife's handwriting. Beside it was a planner with two names I didn't recognize. The house felt different when I walked through the front door after 3 days of babysitting some tech billionaire's paranoid wife in Vegas. Something had shifted. The living room smelled like sandalwood and patchouli, scents that had never existed here before. Blackout curtains hung in the guest room where we used to keep the treadmill. "Heather?" I called out, dropping my gear bag. "In the kitchen." Her voice carried that artificially bright tone she used when hiding something. I found her at the island, laptop open, typing furiously. She snapped it shut the moment I appeared. "How was the job?" she asked, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. Too quick, too formal. Fine, client was a nightmare, but the pay was good. I studied her face. "What's with the incense?" "Oh, Liana brought some over. She's been exploring spiritual practices at college." Liana, Heather's daughter from her first marriage. 21 years old and convinced the world owed her something. I'd tried to be a decent stepfather for 5 years, but the girl had always looked at me like an obstacle to overcome. Later that evening, while Heather showered, I found myself back in our bedroom. The drawer was slightly open, not like Heather, who is methodical about everything. Inside, beneath jewelry boxes, sat the book, Witches Who Embrace Freely, Reclaiming Your Sacred Sensual Power. I flipped through pages highlighted in pink and blue. Heather's neat script filled the margins alongside Liana's sloppy scrawl. Energy portals through intimate connection. Traditional marriage as spiritual imprisonment. Reclaiming your divine feminine through multiple partners. In Liana's handwriting, "Mom, this chapter is perfect for you. Dad would never understand, but you deserve this freedom." In Heather's, "Finally makes sense. Why did I wait so long?" I photographed every annotated page, then returned the book carefully. The next morning, Heather was gone before I woke up. Note on the counter, "Grocery shopping and errands. Back by dinner. Love you." But her car was in the driveway. I called my rideshare contact, an old client who owed me a favor. Within an hour, I had confirmation. Heather had taken 3 Uber rides in the past week, all to Oasis Springs Resort, 40 minutes outside town. I drove there in my pickup, not the black SUV Heather would recognize. The resort catered to wealthy couples looking for spiritual retreats and consciousness expansion. "I'm here to surprise my wife," I told the young clerk. "Heather Rusk, room 702. "Oh, how romantic. Yes, Miss Rusk is already here with her guest." They checked in this morning for the 3-day intensive. 3-day intensive. With a guest. I didn't storm the building. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. 5 years in Army Special Forces had taught me patience. 12 years running a private security firm had taught me that information was more valuable than confrontation. At 6:47 p.m., I saw her. Heather emerged from the side entrance, hair disheveled, wearing clothes I'd never seen before. Behind her walked Marcus Webb, a former client who'd hired my firm 2 years ago. They were holding hands. I captured everything on camera. The intimate touches, the kiss they shared before getting into separate cars. Professional documentation. Evidence. Heather arrived home at 8:15 p.m., chattering about her amazing spa day with the girls. She described facials and massages in vivid detail, painting a picture of relaxation and female bonding. I played along, smiled, asked follow-up questions, let her weave her web of lies while I planned my next move. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not just anger. That would have been simple. This was the same calculating calm I'd felt in combat zones. My wife was playing a game I didn't know had started, but I was about to teach her that I'd been playing games like this much longer. The shadow company was registered in Delaware under Sacred Feminine Enterprises, LLC. It took Reyes exactly 18 hours to trace the money trail from Heather's account to Marcus Webb's holistic life coaching empire. "Your wife's been paying for her Energetic Awakening Premium membership," Reyes explained over encrypted video chat. My old Army buddy had traded his sniper rifle for keyboards, but his attention to detail remained razor sharp. Monthly payments of $2,000 for 4 months. $8,000 funneled to this guy. What else? The coaching business is just the front. Webb's running a high-end escort service disguised as spiritual guidance. Your stepdaughter? She's not just a client, she's recruiting. The next hour revealed a sophisticated scheme. Liana had infiltrated online communities for spiritually awakening women, targeting married women in their 30s and 40s. She'd position herself as an enlightened college student who'd discovered the secret to feminine power, then gradually introduce them to Webb's advanced practices. Reyes pulled up recovered text messages between Liana and Heather from 3 months ago. Liana, Mom, I found something that might help with what we talked about. About feeling trapped and unfulfilled. Heather, honey, I don't know if I should be discussing my marriage with you. Liana, this isn't about betraying Damien. It's about becoming who you're meant to be. Heather, what did you have in mind? Liana, there's this retreat. Women rediscovering their power. My friend went and said it saved her relationship because she finally felt complete. There's more, Reyes continued. Audio files from 6 months ago. He played a recording. Liana's voice. The key is making them think it was their idea. Plant the right seeds and they'll convince themselves they're choosing freedom instead of adultery. Webb's voice responded. And if the husbands become problems? Damien thinks he's so tough with his military background, but he's old school. Honor and loyalty make him predictable. He'll try to fight fair while we'll be 3 steps ahead, playing by different rules entirely. They weren't just targeting my marriage. They were planning to destroy my life. There's one more thing, Reyes said quietly. Someone's been probing your client database. I traced the digital fingerprints. Heather. She's been copying client information for weeks. Names, addresses, security protocols. Everything's being forwarded to Webb's encrypted server. The scope of the betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My clients trusted me with their safety, their secrets, their lives. Politicians, celebrities, business leaders who'd hired me because of my reputation for discretion. What do you want me to do? I walked to my office window and looked out at the street where I'd tried to live an honest life. None of that mattered now. Document everything, build an airtight case, then help me burn their entire operation to the ground. That night, I confronted Liana directly. She was house-sitting while Heather visited her sister. I found Liana in our living room, laptop open, conducting a video conference with a group of women. Ladies, this is exactly what I mean about reclaiming your space, she was saying. Sometimes you have to temporarily take over masculine energy environments. She was using my house as a backdrop for her recruiting operation. I walked into frame deliberately. Liana, we need to talk. She quickly ended the call and spun around, annoyed. What the heck, Damien? I was in the middle of an important session. I know what you're doing, the coaching scam, Webb. The way you manipulated your mother into betraying her marriage and compromising my business? For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw calculating coldness underneath her 21-year-old facade. Then she laughed. Prove it. I don't need to prove anything to you. I'm telling you, it stops now. Or what? You'll throw a tantrum. Mom's happier than she's been in years. She's finally discovering who she really is instead of playing housewife to some washed-up soldier boy. I stepped closer, not threatening, just close enough that she had to look up to meet my eyes. You know what your problem is, Liana? You think you're the smartest person in any room. You think everyone else is playing checkers while you're playing chess. I am. No, I said, my voice dropping to the tone I'd used with enemy combatants. You're playing chess while I'm playing war. And in war, there are no rules except survival. The footage was damning, crystal clear, professionally shot, and completely legal. I'd installed cameras in my own property. Webb's intensive retreat sessions included activities that would make a pornographer blush, all conducted in my guest room while I was away on business. She brought him here? Reyes asked as we reviewed the files. Your house? 3 times in 2 weeks, always when I was scheduled to be out of town overnight. The video showed Heather leading Webb through my workspace, pointing out client files, explaining security protocols, demonstrating how I accessed encrypted databases, corporate espionage in real time. She's downloading your entire client list onto a thumb drive, Reyes muttered. I switched to audio recordings from the dining room. Heather and Webb sharing wine. Webb, the military contacts could be especially valuable. Defense contractors, political figures, foreign nationals under protection. Heather. Damien's stupidly ethical about confidentiality, but that just means the information is more valuable, right? Webb. Your stepdaughter was right about this. Being a goldmine. Heather. Liana's brilliant. I never would have thought to approach it this way without her guidance. They weren't just stealing information. They were actively sabotaging my reputation and setting me up for criminal charges. Another recording, Liana's voice. The goal isn't just to get Mom free from the marriage. It's to make sure Damien can't retaliate. You can't run a security business from prison. You can't afford lawyers when all your assets are frozen. And if he fights back, he won't. Not effectively. I've studied him for 5 years. He's got this rigid moral code that makes him predictable. He'll try to handle things the right way while we systematically destroy him through vectors he doesn't even know exist. 3 days earlier, I'd received notice of a federal audit targeting my business. Anonymous tips about suspicious financial activity. 2 high-profile clients had already terminated their contracts. In the security business, reputation was everything. They've been planning this for months, Reyes observed. Yeah, and it's working. But here's what they didn't count on. I'm not the man they think I am. For 5 years, I'd played the role they expected. The honest veteran, the patient stepfather, the trusting husband. But that man was a performance. Underneath was someone much more dangerous. The confrontation came Thursday morning. I was leaving the gym when Marcus Webb approached me in the parking lot, flanked by 2 men who carried themselves like ex-military. Damian Rusk, Webb said, stopping 10 feet away. We need to talk. Do we? I continued walking toward my truck, keeping peripheral vision on his backup. I wasn't aware we had anything to discuss. There's been some confusion about boundaries lately, some unnecessary surveillance of my business activities. I stopped and faced him fully. Webb was mid-40s, 6 feet, built like he spent serious time in the gym. Probably thought his muscle made him intimidating. He was wrong. Surveillance? I prefer quality control. Your wife is exploring her spiritual growth. That threatens you because you can't control it. But fighting this will only make things worse. Worse how? Your business is already under federal investigation. Clients are leaving. Word gets around fast that Damian Rusk might be dirty. He smiled coldly. Be a shame if more evidence surfaced. The threat was clear. Back off or face complete destruction. You know what's funny? You think you're in control here. You think you've got all the angles covered? Don't I? I smiled. And something in my expression made his backup tense. Webb, let me tell you something about warfare. The side that thinks they've already won is usually about to lose everything. Is that a threat? It's an education. Before he could respond, I was moving. Combat reflexes kicked in as his left guy reached inside his jacket. I drove my elbow into his solar plexus while grabbing his wrist, twisting until bones cracked. His pistol hit the pavement as he doubled over. The second man was faster, already drawing his weapon, but I'd pivoted, using his partner's body as cover while driving my knee into his gun hand. The shot went wide, shattering a car window 50 yards away. 10 seconds. Both men down, one unconscious, one writhing with a dislocated shoulder. Webb stood frozen, mouth hanging open. Here's what's going to happen, I said conversationally, picking up the dropped weapons. You're going to call off your little investigation. You're going to return every piece of stolen information. And you're going to disappear from my wife's life permanently. You're insane, he whispered. No, I'm done playing games by your rules. I smashed both phones against concrete, then looked him in the eyes. Or you can keep escalating. See how that works out for you. That evening, I put my real plan into motion. I've been thinking, I told Heather over dinner, about us, about our relationship. She looked up, surprised. What about it? Maybe you're right. Maybe I have been too controlling, too traditional. Maybe it's time I opened my mind to new possibilities. Her eyes widened. What are you saying? I want to understand what you've been exploring. This spiritual growth, this feminine liberation. Maybe we could try something together. Together? I found this retreat online. Couples focused. Emphasis on expanding boundaries and exploring authentic intimacy. I showed her the website. What do you think? The retreat was real. What Heather didn't know was that I'd also arranged for Reyes to attend as another participant, along with a journalist and a divorce attorney. This looks interesting, Heather said. But are you sure? This isn't really your scene. Maybe it should be. I love you, Heather. If this is important to you, it's important to me. She actually teared up, the guilt of her betrayal colliding with what she thought was my genuine attempt at reconciliation. The retreat was scheduled for the following weekend. 5 days to prepare the battlefield. Friday afternoon, I met with Detective Sarah Morrison, a contact for my law enforcement work. This is substantial, she said, reviewing the evidence. Industrial espionage, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. Probably federal charges too. How substantial? 25 to life substantial for all of them. Good. I want warrants ready Monday morning. Full arrests, asset seizure, the works. Saturday morning, Heather and I drove to the retreat center together. The center was crystals, flowing water, carefully crafted ambiance designed to make people feel safe expressing their deepest desires. Perfect for what I needed. Everything was recorded, multiple cameras, professional audio, all completely legal since everyone had signed consent forms. When our turn came for the radical honesty exercise, I took Heather's hands and looked directly into her eyes. I need to tell you something I know about Marcus. Her face went white. Damien, No, let me finish. I know about the retreat sessions. I know about the money. I know about the client information you've been sharing. The room went silent. I know about all of it, I continued. And I want you to know that I understand why you did it. Her confusion was genuine. This wasn't the confrontation she'd expected. You felt trapped, unappreciated, like I was holding you back from becoming who you really are. Damien, her voice was barely a whisper. So here's what I want to know. Right here, right now, in front of everyone. What do you really want? Not what Marcus wants, not what Liana told you to want, but what Heather wants. Finally, she spoke. I want to feel alive again. I want to feel desired and powerful and free. I want to explore parts of myself that I buried when I got married. And I want to do it without feeling like I'm betraying someone I love, even if that exploration involves being intimate with other people. Yes, the admission hung in the air like a detonated grenade. Thank you for being honest, I said softly. That took courage. Then I stood up and addressed the room. I want everyone here to witness what authentic vulnerability looks like. My wife just admitted to adultery, corporate espionage, and conspiracy to commit fraud. And I want her to know that I respect her honesty, even as I prepare to destroy everyone who manipulated her into betraying our marriage. The room erupted into chaos. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced over the commotion, you've just participated in the documentation of evidence that will be used in multiple criminal prosecutions. That's when Reyes stood up and began making arrests. The courthouse was packed Monday morning. Local media had picked up the story. Security executive exposes wife's espionage ring. And the public gallery was full of spectators. I sat with my attorney, Marcus Chen. Expensive, ruthless, specialized in complex fraud cases. Across the aisle, Heather sat with her public defender, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. This case represents one of the most comprehensive betrayals of marriage and business trust this court has ever seen, Chen began. Mrs. Rusk systematically violated every aspect of her marriage contract while conducting corporate espionage against her husband's legitimate security business. Financial records appeared on the large screen. The evidence will show that Mrs. Rusk transferred over $37,000 of marital assets to finance an operation designed to destroy her husband's reputation and livelihood. The next 2 hours were methodical destruction. Audio recordings of Heather coordinating theft, video evidence of corporate espionage, financial records showing money laundering, screenshots of classified information being sold to foreign buyers. When it came time for witness testimony, I took the stand. How did you first discover your wife's activities? I found annotated books about opening marriages hidden in our bedroom. When I investigated, I discovered she'd been attending sessions with Marcus Webb. When did you realize this involved more than adultery? When I discovered she was copying my client database. At that point, I understood this was a threat to national security, not just marital infidelity. Why didn't you confront your wife immediately? Because confrontation without evidence is just emotion. I needed to understand the full scope of the operation. Too many people were at risk. My clients, their families, potentially national interests. Chen showed screenshots from Heather's social media posts made after the retreat. Even facing criminal charges, she'd been posting about masculine fragility and patriarchal retaliation. The defense's case was brief and ineffective. Heather took the stand and made everything worse. I felt trapped in a marriage that wasn't allowing me to grow. My stepdaughter showed me that there were other possibilities. Chen's cross-examination was surgical. Mrs. Rusk, you transferred $37,000 to Marcus Webb's organization. That seems like more than paperwork. I was paying for coaching services. Coaching services that included recording your husband's confidential business conversations? Sometimes. So you recorded private conversations with your husband and distributed them to strangers as examples of masculine control? It sounds bad when you put it that way. How should it sound, Mrs. Rusk? No answer. Judge Williams had heard enough. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of fraud, theft, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional interference with business relationships. Mrs. Rusk, your actions represent a profound violation of marriage, business ethics, and basic human decency. You systematically betrayed every person who trusted you. The court awards full dissolution of marriage with no spousal support. All marital assets except Mrs. Rusk's personal clothing are awarded to Mr. Rusk as compensation for damages. Additionally, this court is issuing a permanent restraining order and referring this evidence to federal prosecutors for criminal charges. The gavel came down with finality. 6 months later, I was rebuilding more than just my business. The federal prosecutions had made national news, and my role in exposing the conspiracy had enhanced my reputation rather than destroying it. Heather had pleaded guilty to federal espionage charges and received 8 years in prison. Webb was awaiting trial on charges that could result in life imprisonment. But Liana was the most interesting case. She'd served 4 months before making bail, then immediately started rebuilding her online presence under a new identity. New website, new social media accounts, new spiritual awakening program. But I'd been watching. She's smarter now, Reyes observed, using VPNs, encrypted communications, anonymous payment processors. Not all of them, I said, showing him my laptop. She made one crucial error. The screen showed a private video call Liana had recorded for her premium subscribers, explaining her methodology for helping women reclaim their power. See, the thing about men like my former stepfather, she was saying, is that they think honor and integrity are strengths, but they're actually weaknesses you can exploit. She described how she'd manipulated Heather into betraying our marriage and stealing client information. People love a betrayed woman narrative. They just don't need to know that I engineered the whole betrayal from the beginning. My mother was the perfect test case, lonely, unfulfilled, desperate to feel special. She laughed while describing how she destroyed her mother's life as a test case. The stepfather thought he was so smart, recording everything, but he played right into my hands. I needed him to expose the operation so I could learn what not to do next time. Send this to Detective Morrison and to the federal prosecutors. And to every major news outlet. Admitting to conspiracy after the fact? Admitting to perjury. She testified that she was manipulated by Webb and regretted her actions. This proves she orchestrated everything and feels no remorse. Within 24 hours, Liana's new identity was demolished. The video went viral. Her bail was revoked, her plea agreement voided, and she was back in federal custody facing original charges plus perjury and obstruction of justice. The real destruction came from her own followers. The women who'd been paying for her content discovered they'd been funding someone who bragged about destroying families for sport. Support groups formed online to share manipulation stories and demand refunds. The spiritual coaching industry came under scrutiny. Regulatory agencies investigated unlicensed practitioners. Legitimate therapists distanced themselves from transformational workshops. Liana had destroyed the very market she'd been rebuilding. 3 days later, I received a letter from federal prison. Handwritten, desperate. Damien, I know you're behind this. Can we talk? I think there's been a misunderstanding. Maybe we can work something out? L. I threw the letter away without responding. The final chapter came when I opened Rusk Resilience Training, a program for men who'd lost everything to lies and manipulation. The curriculum covered financial protection, digital security, legal strategy, psychological manipulation tactics. We're not broken, I told the first group of participants. We're building. The program grew rapidly. Word spread through military networks, law enforcement communities, business associations, men who'd been financially destroyed by divorce fraud, fathers who'd lost custody through false allegations, entrepreneurs whose partners had sabotaged their companies. All learning the same lesson. Sometimes the people you trust most are the greatest threats to everything you've built, but also learning the corollary. Once you understand the threat, you can develop defenses that make you stronger than before. Heather served 7 years. When released, she moved across the country and took a job helping women transition out of abusive relationships. The irony wasn't lost on me. Webb died in federal prison after 18 months. Heart attack officially. Though given the number of defense contractors and government officials whose families had been compromised, there were plenty of people with motive and access. Liana served 12 years and was released with a federal probation officer and a lifetime ban from operating any business involving personal coaching. Last I heard, she was working at a call center in Ohio under a different name. As for me, I kept building. The security business expanded internationally. The resilience training became a consulting firm. I remarried, a fellow veteran who understood operational security and never asked questions she didn't want answers to. But sometimes late at night, I still thought about that book in the bedroom drawer, Witches Who Embrace Freely. The moment I realized my life had been turned into someone else's game, the moment I decided to stop playing by their rules and start enforcing my own. They'd called it feminine freedom. I'd called it war. And in war, there are no points for second place.